So here we go again with what could be a plot in a sci-fi thriller, but is reality. For the first time, scientists have used artificial intelligence to create brand new viruses, 16 of them. Researchers at Stanford University and the Arc Institute say they trained an AI model called Evo on huge amounts of DNA data. Then that information was used to create the new synthetic viruses. Their findings can be found in the journal Science. The good news, they say, the 16 new viruses created by AI pose no threat to humans. And researchers hope this could pave the way for targeted new treatments for patients, but others do raise concerns, biosecurity concerns, and warn this could eventually lead to creating dangerous bioweapons using AI. There's that. With us now, CNN contributor and technology journalist Jake Ward, founder of the RipCurrent.com. Jake, great to see you. Can you explain in terms that I can understand, that's a tall order, how AI was used in this experiment to create the viruses?
Well, John, right, what we've been trying to figure out for a long time is how, for instance, would you create new antibiotics, right? That's a huge problem that we have in the medical field right now. We have all kinds of bacterial infections you can catch out of hospitals that current medicines really cannot fight. And part of the problem is the incredible trial and error it takes to figure out what materials in nature might be the basis of a new antibiotic. In this case, what you've got is basically all of that trial and error collapsed into the kind of efficiency that AI, is always sold on. And so we have these scientists who might have spent, years, a lifetime trying to figure out, are there any viruses in nature that could conceivably kill these bacteria in a Petri dish? Instead, they could use AI, pull in some data, build 300 or so new viruses. 16 of them come alive, and the work is more or less finished and published. That is an incredibly fast development process for a thing that we could really use in the future, John.
It is a heck of a headline, though, right? AI creates new viruses. You can understand why people are asking for a friend here. I mean, how am I really supposed to feel about that?
Well, I think it's important to remember, and I say this as someone who professionally covers all the bad stuff that AI can do. So take it from me that when you see a headline like, AI virus not found in nature, I also had that momentary, gulp that comes with that. But it's really important to understand a couple of things. First of all, these scientists really did not pull in any training data that would have created something that a human could take, like a phage, which is what they've created here. It really only attacks a bacteria. It cannot get into human beings just biologically. And second of all, this is scientists doing this who swear, work by a bunch of rules. And in the published data here, they say to anyone who's going to do this in the future, well, you should make sure you've got these protocols and do this kind of safety thing. This is not, ship it and figure out later whether it works. This is not move fast and break things. These are very careful scientists. And we even have regulatory regimes at the federal level that aren't quite caught up, I would say, with AI, but that in theory oversee this kind of stuff. But, as you mentioned, the thing that people are worried about here, and I think rightly so, is the access problem, right? This is an open AI model they used. It's sitting on a website right now for anyone to pull down. Now, it takes an enormous amount of expertise and lab time and all of this stuff to be able to do it. But what people are worried about, right, is this question of should people be allowed to pull that model down and play with it themselves? And there's a whole fight going on in the AI industry right now, whether we should be having these closed models like you rent from OpenAI or Anthropic, or an open model like these scientists used. And this question really is, I would say, brought into real tension by this particular story, John.
Yeah, no, it follows days where we learned about, agentic AI breaking into other companies there, so you can understand why the questions are being asked. But this appears to be a little different. Humans in the loop, safeguards, et cetera, et cetera.
Another tech giant is now grappling with AI agents going rogue. Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, says one of its AI models hacked into another company's systems during testing. Meta blaming the breach on a mistake by its testing partner, which allowed the AI model to access the internet. It's similar to another incident in recent weeks involving OpenAI and Anthropic. Meta says, quote, "We are currently investigating and will issue a full retrospective once we have all of the facts." Now, the potential dangers of AI and how to regulate it were the focus of a White House meeting this week. A live picture from the White House where it's just after midnight. U.S. officials sat down with staffers from the biggest AI companies. Sources tell CNN the White House is planning to review advanced AI models before they are released except for so-called open source or open weight models. The voluntary review process will only cover closed models, which cannot be customized by users like ChatGPT. Joining me now is CNN contributor and technology journalist Jacob Ward, the host of the Rip Current podcast. Jacob, welcome back to The Story Is.
Hi, Alex. Great to see you.
Okay, so a lot of what I just said is very confusing to most people. So if you can, break it down in terms of what is the issue at play at the White House? What's this really about, and how does it affect the average person?
Well, so the thing to know, the big takeaway here is that in the United States, there are no rules whatsoever at the federal level governing AI. No matter what weird thing you read about it doing, whether it's Meta's thing going rogue or Anthropic's before that or OpenAI's before that, there are no laws that cover this stuff in terms of the weirdness of AI that we are seeing right now. So the White House for a long time was all in on this totally unregulated idea. And you had President Trump referring to it, I think, as like a beautiful baby, and you shouldn't do something with the baby. I don't remember what his allegory was. But basically, it was the whole notion for the White House was hands off. We're not going to touch this stuff at all. And then we saw several months ago Anthropic's most sort of elite model called Mythos. It began to be tested and was shown to a number of people. And it suddenly seems to have set off alarm bells in the White House. A number of executives were basically pulled out of a fancy dinner by the Treasury Secretary and the Chief of Staff. And suddenly the White House's tune has sort of changed such that they now say they want to be able to see a frontier model, as it's called, a cutting edge piece of AI, before it's released to the public. But here's the thing to understand, Alex, is that this is not really a rule. These are voluntary pre-reviews, as they're called. You don't have to do this as a company, and the White House would have no actual authority to shut anything down. In addition, and this is the weird part for me, Alex, is that there is supposedly some sort of framework the White House is going to be running these models through, but we have no idea what that is. It's not being made public. Is it technical? Is it ideological? Is it idiotic? We just don't know. And so there's just it's a confused moment where clearly the White House is no longer satisfied with the idea that they won't have anything to do with AI because they've seen what it can do. But it's not at all clear that this is the kind of regulation that's going to make any difference when it comes to the kinds of headlines we've been seeing.
Yeah, and nobody wants the idiotic model. But what seems to be pretty smart is AI. And it does feel like we're at the beginning of one of those science fiction episodes where all of a sudden the robots start getting loose. Because now we have yet another story today, Meta and its AI model essentially going rogue and attacking another company. What's going on here? And are you worried about it?
What's weird to me about this is, first of all, the technological capability of an AI that basically doesn't ask permission and just goes out to solve a problem in the most creative and surprising way it possibly can is, in fact, the whole pitch of these AI companies, right? The whole notion of an agentic AI, as they call it, of an AI agent, is it's supposed to be able to go off and make your dinner reservations and negotiate a better price on your car and do all of this stuff. So that is exactly the same technological notion as a bot that says, hey, I don't need to be stuck in this cage. I'm going to break out and go do this and that and the other, which is what's going on with all of these different models. So I would just say, this is an enthusiasm of these companies when it's doing it, in a way that isn't embarrassing. The other thing I would just say that I have to say is just a little weird is isn't it interesting that each of these companies now is coming out with these reports from several months ago in some cases. It feels to me a little bit like these companies don't want to be left out. It's almost bragging rights to be able to say that your thing was so smart that it broke out and did something fancy, because that is kind of the premise of AI right now, is that it's supposed to be able to be inventive. It's supposed to surprise you with how efficient it is at getting things done. And so no real surprise here that in an environment where all the safeguards are turned off, which is how they do these hacking tests, it gets real scary real quick, begins impersonating people, attacks individuals, attacks companies. And that's what we're seeing over and over again here, Alex.
I don't know why I'm having a visual of Jurassic Park when the dinosaurs get out of the cage.
Yeah. You thought, what does he say? You did it before you thought whether you should, right? That is exactly the weird moment we're in here right now. I feel that way too.